It was a serene morning at the Mendonça mansion, the kind of morning that whispered promises of comfort and warmth. The sun cast a golden hue through the sprawling windows, illuminating the elegant kitchen where Clara Mendonça, a determined young woman of 25, was preparing breakfast. She was the only child of Arthur Mendonça, a powerful billionaire known for his keen intellect and unyielding resolve in the financial world. As Clara arranged the breakfast spread, she couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. Her intuition had always been sharp, a trait she inherited from her father, who had taught her the importance of vigilance in a world rife with hidden dangers. Today, however, an unshakable sense of foreboding gnawed at her. She glanced at the clock, noting that her father would soon be descending for his morning routine. Arthur, with his imposing presence and silver-streaked hair, embodied the essence of authority. He had built his empire from the ground up, but with great power came great envy and, inevitably, enemies. Clara often worried about the threats that lurked in the shadows, and this morning, her instinct screamed that her father might be in danger. Just as Arthur stepped onto the staircase, Clara set a steaming cup of coffee on the table, its rich aroma filling the air. She meticulously arranged the breakfast items: crispy bacon, fluffy scrambled eggs, and freshly baked croissants. But her attention kept drifting to the coffee, and she felt an inexplicable urge to intervene. Arthur entered the kitchen, greeted by the inviting scents that enveloped the space. He wore a crisp white shirt, his usual choice for the day, paired with tailored pants that spoke of sophistication. "Good morning, Clara," he exclaimed, a smile breaking across his face. "This looks delightful." "Good morning, Dad," she replied, forcing a smile while her heart raced. As he reached for the cup of coffee, her pulse quickened and a wave of panic washed over her. The unease she had felt earlier surged within her, demanding action. "Dad, you can't drink that," Clara shouted, her voice laced with urgency. Arthur froze, taken aback by the intensity of her words. "What's going on, Clara?" "This is absurd," he retorted, momentarily startled by the panic etched across his daughter's face. In an impulsive rush, Clara dashed across the room, snatching the cup from his hand. She placed it back on the table, her hands trembling. "I overheard something last night," she blurted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Someone is trying to kill you. They put poison in your drink." The shock in Arthur's eyes was palpable, yet he remained composed, a trait he had honed over the years. Years of dealing with crises had equipped him with a calm demeanor, even in the face of potential danger. "That's a serious accusation, Clara." "Are you sure?" he replied, his brow furrowing with concern. "I'm positive, Dad. I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it," Clara insisted, her heart racing. "We need to be cautious. Whoever it is could be someone close to us, and we can't let them know we're on to them." Arthur took a deep breath, weighing her words. The air in the room thickened with tension as he called for Lucas Alencar, the head of his security team. Lucas had been with the family for over a decade, a steadfast guardian who would lay down his life to protect them. Within moments, Lucas arrived, his expression serious and alert. "Sir, you called?" Lucas asked, eyeing Clara with concern. "Lucas, we have a situation," Arthur said, gesturing towards a coffee cup. "Clara believes someone has poisoned this drink. I need you to test it immediately." Lucas nodded, his training kicking into high gear. He retrieved a testing kit from his pocket, quickly assessing the cup's contents. The silence in the kitchen was deafening, each tick of the clock echoing the growing tension. Clara's heart pounded in her chest as she watched Lucas work, her mind racing with possibilities. A few agonizing minutes later, Lucas straightened, his expression grim. "It's confirmed, sir. The coffee contains poison." Shock washed over Clara, but she quickly steeled herself. "We need to investigate quietly. We can't alert anyone else just yet. The perpetrator could be among us, hiding in plain sight." Arthur nodded, his resolve hardening. "You're right, Clara. We'll handle this ourselves for now. I want you to keep a close eye on everything, and we'll figure this out together." The weight of his words hung in the air, a silent agreement between father and daughter that they would face whatever threat lay ahead. As they stood in the kitchen, the warm morning light now felt ominous, casting shadows that danced across the room. Clara's heart raced, not just from fear but from a newfound determination. She would protect her father at all costs, and together they would uncover the truth behind this sinister plot. In the days that followed, Clara would delve into the depths of their lives, unraveling secrets that had long been buried beneath a veneer of wealth and power. The warning had been sounded, and the investigation into the depths of deception was just beginning. In the aftermath of the shocking revelation, the atmosphere in the Mendonça mansion had shifted dramatically. The once vibrant kitchen, filled with the delightful aroma of breakfast, now felt heavy with an unsettling tension. Clara and Arthur stood at the center of the storm, their minds racing with the implications of the attempted poisoning. Lucas Alencar, the head of security, was already at work, with a quiet efficiency born of years of experience. He began to piece together the mystery. He pulled out his phone and called the local authorities, not to report the incident just yet, but to gather intel about the recent happenings in the neighborhood. As he walked through the kitchen, Clara's gaze followed him, her thoughts swirling like a tempest. "Clara," Arthur said, breaking the silence, "we need to act quickly but discreetly. If someone is indeed trying to harm me, we must investigate without raising suspicion. Our enemies could be closer than we think." Clara nodded, determination flooding her veins. She had always felt a strong protective instinct toward her father, but never before had that instinct been put to such a dire test. "We should start by looking into the people around us," she suggested, her mind racing with potential suspects. "What about the household staff? Anyone could be involved." "Exactly," Lucas replied, rejoining them after finishing his call. "I'll review the security footage from last night and question the staff. But we should also look at the people closest to you. Dad, your business partners and advisors. They may have motives we haven't even considered." As Lucas prepared to dig deeper, Clara felt an unrelenting urge to take charge of the situation. She had always admired her father's business acumen, and now she was determined to mirror that sharpness in their current predicament. "Let me speak to the staff first. I know them well, and I might catch something they won't share with Lucas," she proposed. "Good idea," Arthur agreed. "You have a way of getting people to open up. Just remember to be cautious. We can't let our guard down for a moment." With her father's encouragement ringing in her ears, Clara began her investigation. She moved through the mansion, her heart pounding as she approached the staff. Each member had been a part of her life for as long as she could remember, and she felt a mix of familiarity and unease as she considered that one of them could potentially be involved in a plot against her father. First, she approached Maria, the housekeeper who had worked for the family for over a decade. Maria was always cheerful, a beacon of warmth amidst the cold, hard realities of wealth. Clara found her in the laundry room, folding freshly laundered linens. "Hey, Maria," Clara began, trying to keep her tone casual. "Can we talk for a minute?" "Of course, Querida," Maria replied, her eyes lighting up with affection. "What's on your mind?" Clara hesitated for a moment, then decided to get straight to the point. "It's about Dad. I need to know if you noticed anything strange in the house recently. Anyone acting differently? Any unusual visitors?" Maria's smile faded as she placed the linens down. "Oh, Clara, I didn't mean to worry you, but now that you mention it, there was a delivery man who came by last week. He seemed off. He asked a lot of questions about Mr. Mendonça and his schedule." "Did you get a name?" Clara pressed, her heart racing. "Just his first name, David. He didn't have the company logo on his truck, which struck me as odd." "It was all very strange," Maria replied, her brow furrowing in concern. Clara thanked Maria and made a mental note to look into the mysterious delivery man later. As she continued her inquiries, she felt a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. Could someone so close to them be involved in something so sinister? Next, Clara sought out John, the butler, known for his unwavering loyalty and discretion. He had seen and heard everything in the mansion over the years. "John, can I ask you something?" she said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "Of course, Miss Clara. What can I do for you?" John replied, his expression serious. "I need to know if you've noticed anything unusual lately. Anything at all that might relate to Dad's safety." Clara felt the weight of her words, aware that she was asking John to divulge secrets he might normally keep close to his chest. John paused, his gaze thoughtful. "Well, there was that conversation I overheard between Mr. Braga and a woman I didn't recognize. They were in the study, and it sounded tense. I didn't catch all the details, but it felt like they were discussing something critical." "Daniel Braga?" Clara asked, her heart sinking. Daniel was one of her father's closest business partners, but she had begun to suspect him since learning about his financial troubles. "What do you mean by tense?" "Just that their voices were raised, and I heard the name Mendonça come up several times," John replied. "But I'm afraid that's all I can recall." Thanking him for the information, Clara's mind raced as she considered the implications. Daniel had always seemed supportive, but what if he was hiding a darker agenda? She felt a deepening sense of urgency. They needed to act quickly. Meanwhile, Lucas had been busy combing through security footage. He called Clara to the living room, where the large screen displayed various clips from the past week. "Look at this," he said, pausing the video. "Here's the delivery man Maria mentioned." Clara leaned in, squinting at the screen. The man on the footage had an unremarkable face, but Clara noticed a slight hesitation in his movements as he approached the mansion. "He doesn't look like a regular delivery guy," Clara observed. "What's he doing lingering around?" Lucas fast-forwarded the footage, and Clara's breath caught in her throat. The same man was seen entering a side door that led to the kitchen. "He was here for a while, and then he left without a delivery," Lucas noted. "That's highly suspicious. Can you track down where he works?" Clara asked, her determination solidifying into a plan. "I'll dig into it. I'll see if we can find a record of his visit," Lucas replied, his fingers already tapping on his phone as he gathered information. As Clara absorbed the information, a sense of dread began to wash over her. It was clear that this was more than just a random act of violence. Someone was orchestrating a plan with precision. But who? And what were their motives? Throughout the day, Clara's thoughts drifted to Helena, the family attorney. She had always been cool and calculated, which made Clara question her motives. Was she truly looking out for their best interests, or was there a hidden agenda? Clara made a mental note to speak with Helena next, hoping to uncover any potential connections to the brewing conspiracy. The day dragged on, and as evening fell, Clara gathered the courage to confront Helena. "Can we meet in your office?" she asked, her voice firm but polite. "Of course, Clara. Is everything all right?" Helena replied, her eyes narrowing slightly, perhaps sensing the tension in Clara's demeanor. Once in the office, Clara wasted no time. "Helena, I need to talk to you about some unusual activity surrounding my father's business dealings," she began, her tone direct. "What kind of activity?" Helena inquired, her expression inscrutable. "The delivery man Maria mentioned in a conversation I overheard between you and Daniel," Clara stated, her heart racing. "I need to know where you stand in all of this." Helena leaned back in her chair, her demeanor shifting subtly. "Clara, I assure you, my only interest is in protecting Mr. Mendonça's assets. You must understand that the world of finance is treacherous, and sometimes people act out of desperation." Clara felt a chill run down her spine at Helena's words. "But are you really protecting him, or could you be a part of this?" "I assure you, Clara, I'm on your father's side," Helena replied, though her voice was cool, lacking the warmth Clara had hoped to find. As Clara left the office, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Helena's calmness felt like a mask hiding a more complex reality. Was she merely an advisor, or did she have deeper ties to the threats surrounding her father? The pieces of the puzzle were coming together, but the full picture remained frustratingly out of reach. As the evening shadows lengthened, Clara felt a growing determination to uncover the truth. She could not afford to falter, not when her father's life was on the line. This was just the beginning of a dangerous game, one that would test her resolve and resourcefulness in ways she had never imagined. Clara knew that the answers were out there, hidden beneath layers of deception, and she was more than ready to confront whatever darkness awaited her. The following days at the Mendoza mansion were charged with tension, each moment laced with the lingering threat of danger. Clara's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, her determination steeled by the knowledge that her father's life was at stake. The investigation had only just begun, and she felt an urgent need to peel back the layers of deception surrounding them. As the sun rose, casting soft rays through the ornate windows, Clara took her usual seat at the breakfast table, though her appetite was nowhere to be found. Instead, her gaze fell on the empty cup that had once contained the poisoned coffee. Each time she looked at it, a chill raced down her spine, reminding her of the close call they had escaped. "Are you all right, Clara?" Arthur asked, noticing her pensive expression. He had returned to his normal routine, but the incident still weighed heavily on both their minds. "I'm fine, Dad. Just thinking about what we discovered," she replied, pushing her plate aside. "I need to know more about Daniel and Helena. I can't shake the feeling that they're hiding something." Arthur nodded, his brow furrowing. "I agree. We need to dig deeper into their backgrounds. Let's start with Daniel. He has a lot to gain if anything were to happen to me." Clara's thoughts drifted to the conversation she had overheard between Daniel and Helena. Their words had struck her as more than just business. There had been an urgency, an underlying current of tension that suggested they were discussing far more than financial matters. "Lucas," Clara called out as she entered the living room, where their head of security was poring over files. "Can you pull up everything you have on Daniel's financial situation? I want to see if there's anything unusual." "Already on it," Lucas replied, glancing up from his laptop. "I've been tracking his investments, and it looks like he's in serious trouble. He lost a substantial amount of money in a failed venture last month." "Do you have any details?" Clara asked, leaning closer. Lucas navigated through the data, revealing a series of bold investments that had backfired. "Here it is. He put a significant amount into a tech startup that went under almost overnight. From what I can see, he's desperate to recover his losses." "Desperate enough to consider drastic measures," Clara mused, her mind racing. "If he thinks he can get a piece of my father's fortune, he might be willing to do anything." Just then, Lucas received a notification on his phone. "I've got an alert. It seems Daniel has been in contact with some unsavory characters, known associates of organized crime. This could complicate things further," he warned. Clara felt a wave of nausea wash over her. The deeper they dug, the more dangerous the situation became. "We need to confront him," she said, her voice firm. "If we have evidence of his financial troubles and connections to criminal elements, we can get him to talk." Arthur, overhearing their conversation, nodded in agreement. "But we need to be cautious. He could panic and do something irrational." Later that afternoon, Clara prepared herself to face Daniel. She wanted to catch him off guard, to see if he would reveal anything under pressure. As she arrived at his office, she steadied her breath, pushing open the heavy oak door with resolve. "Clara, what brings you here?" Daniel exclaimed, his demeanor shifting from surprise to cautious friendliness. He was a tall man with a sharp jawline and a slick-back hairstyle, always dressed in tailored suits that radiated power. "I need to talk to you about the business, Daniel," Clara replied, maintaining an air of confidence. "There are some concerns I'd like to address." "Concerns?" he echoed, feigning innocence. "What could possibly concern you?" "Your recent investments," Clara said, leaning in slightly. "I've been hearing some troubling things about your financial situation." Daniel's expression darkened, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. "I assure you, Clara, my investments are my business. I don't see why this should involve you." "Because your situation could affect my father's business dealings," Clara retorted, her voice steady. "And we both know how closely intertwined our finances are." At that moment, Daniel's facade cracked, and Clara saw the anger simmering beneath the surface. "Listen, Clara, I've been under a lot of pressure. This isn't the time for games," he warned, his tone turning icy. "What kind of pressure?" Clara pressed, sensing an opening. "Are you involved with anyone who could pose a threat to my father?" Daniel's eyes narrowed, and Clara could feel the tension mounting in the room. "That's a dangerous accusation. You need to be careful how you speak to me," he shot back. "Careful? You're the one who needs to be careful," Clara countered, feeling emboldened. "I know about your connections. You've been talking to people who have a reputation for violence. What are you planning?" Daniel took a step back, visibly rattled. "I don't know what you think you know, but I assure you it's nothing. I'm trying to save my business. You wouldn't understand what it's like to lose everything." Clara's heart raced as she observed his defensive posture. "I may not know exactly what you're going through, but I do know that desperation leads people to make terrible choices. If you're involved in something dangerous, it could come back to haunt you and my father." Daniel's bravado faltered as Clara's words sank in. "I'm not a threat to our tour," he insisted, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "Then prove it," Clara said, crossing her arms. "Let's work together to figure this out. I want to protect my father, but I also want to protect you from your own choices." Daniel hesitated, the internal struggle visible on his face. Finally, he relented, though Clara could tell he was still holding something back. "All right, I'll consider it, but if you tell anyone about this conversation, I won't hesitate to deny everything." With that, Clara left his office, her mind racing with possibilities. She had made progress, but the conversation only deepened her suspicions. What was Daniel really involved in? And how far would he go to protect his interests? That evening, Clara reconvened with Lucas and Arthur to share her findings. "I confronted Daniel about his financial issues, and he was defensive, almost too defensive," she reported. "I think he's hiding something, possibly his connections to criminal elements." Lucas nodded, his expression grave. "That makes sense. If he's desperate enough, he could consider extreme measures, especially if he feels cornered." Arthur leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "We need to keep a close watch on him, but we also need to investigate further. What about Helena? Have you gathered anything on her?" "I've been thinking about her too," Clara admitted. "Her relationship with Daniel raises red flags. She's been pushing for business deals that benefit her more than they benefit us." "Let's see if we can dig into her recent activities," Arthur suggested. "If she's involved in something shady, it could lead us back to Daniel." The trio spent the evening poring over documents and emails, searching for any link between Helena and Daniel. Clara felt a sense of purpose igniting within her. She was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. As the night wore on, Clara's resolve only grew stronger. She knew that the threats were real, and that they needed to act swiftly to protect her father. The tension in the mansion was palpable, but so was the spirit of determination. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly coming together, and she would stop at nothing to reveal the truth behind the shadows that loomed over their lives. In the days that followed, Clara and her team would face challenges that tested their limits, uncovering secrets that threatened not only their family's legacy, but also their very lives. And as the web of deceit began to unravel, Clara realized that the greatest dangers often lie hidden in plain sight. Days turned into nights as Clara and her father, Arthur, continued their investigation into the shadowy figures surrounding them. The tension within the Mendonça mansion remained thick, each passing hour tinged with an underlying anxiety that gnawed at Clara's nerves. The stakes were higher than ever, and Clara was determined to unveil the truth behind the threats to her father's life. Lucas Alencar, the family's loyal head of security, had been working tirelessly alongside Clara, scrutinizing every detail of their surroundings and every interaction Arthur had with his colleagues and associates. As the days progressed, Clara could feel the weight of the world on her shoulders, yet she also felt an unwavering resolve to protect her father and their family legacy. After gathering more evidence regarding Daniel's dubious financial dealings, Clara decided it was time to confront both Daniel and Helena together. They needed to see if their paths crossed in ways that would reveal the connection between their possible motives and the threat they posed. "Lucas, I want to set up a meeting with both Daniel and Helena," Clara said one morning as she and Lucas were reviewing documents in Arthur's study. "If they're in this together, we can force their hands and uncover whatever scheme they're plotting." Lucas looked contemplative. "That's a bold move, Clara. They may not take kindly to being cornered like that, especially if they suspect we're onto them." "I know," Clara replied, her determination unwavering. "But we have to try. We can't let them control the narrative any longer. The truth needs to come out." With a plan in motion, Clara reached out to both Daniel and Helena, requesting a meeting under the pretense of discussing potential business opportunities. She set the time for the following evening, ensuring that Lucas would be present as a silent observer. The anticipation weighed heavily in the air, electrifying Clara's every thought. As the appointed hour approached, Clara felt a blend of anxiety and excitement. She dressed in a tailored suit, exuding confidence while mentally preparing herself for the confrontation ahead. She practiced her lines, reminding herself of the gravity of their situation. This wasn't just a business meeting. It was a chance to uncover the truth and, potentially, to save her father's life. When Daniel and Helena arrived, Clara greeted them with a carefully measured smile. "Thank you both for coming. I think it's essential we discuss some pressing matters," she began, her voice steady as she gestured for them to take their seats at the dining table. Daniel, ever the suave businessman, leaned back with a relaxed demeanor. "Of course, Clara. Always a pleasure to discuss business with you and your father. What's on your mind?" Helena crossed her arms, her eyes flickering with curiosity as she assessed the situation. "I hope this isn't just a social call, Clara. We're all quite busy," she remarked, her tone cool and dismissive. "Actually, it is quite serious," Clara replied, maintaining her composure. "I believe there have been some misunderstandings regarding our family's business and the security of our assets." Daniel feigned ignorance, a smirk playing on his lips. "Misunderstandings? Surely you can't be implying that I would be involved in anything unsavory, Clara." Clara decided to go on the offensive. "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. We're aware of your recent financial troubles, Daniel. It's concerning that you've turned to people who operate outside the law to remedy your situation." Helena stiffened at Clara's boldness, and Daniel's facade began to crack. "What exactly are you insinuating?" he demanded, his voice rising slightly. "I'm insinuating that desperation leads to dangerous choices," Clara countered, "and that those choices might put my father in harm's way. We both know that the stakes are incredibly high." The tension in the room intensified as Clara watched Daniel's expression shift from disbelief to something darker. "You have no proof," he said, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "Actually, I do," Clara said, her heart racing with adrenaline. She pulled out a folder filled with documents that outlined Daniel's questionable dealings and connections to less than reputable individuals. "This is just the tip of the iceberg. You have a pattern of behavior that suggests you might do anything to protect your interests, even if it means harming my father." Helena attempted to regain control of the situation. "Clara, you're playing a dangerous game. You should be cautious about making accusations without solid evidence." "Solid evidence? You want solid evidence," Clara retorted, a fire igniting in her chest. "What about the conversation I overheard between you and Daniel? The discussions about my father's will? Your push for business deals that could jeopardize our family?" Daniel's eyes widened with alarm as he realized the gravity of their situation. "You're making a huge mistake, Clara," he warned, his voice dropping to a menacing tone. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." At that moment, Lucas stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "We know exactly what we're dealing with. The only mistake here is underestimating the lengths people will go to protect their own interests. You both need to realize that we're not just going to roll over and accept your threats." Clara felt a surge of empowerment as she watched Lucas stand firm, his loyalty providing her with the strength to confront the mounting danger. If there's any truth to your fears, Daniel, or if Helena is involved in any way, we will find out. I suggest you both consider your next moves carefully." As the confrontation escalated, Clara caught a glimpse of something shifting in Daniel's expression. Fear mixed with anger. "You think you're clever, don't you?" he spat, leaning forward. "But you're playing with fire, and you have no idea how far I'll go to protect what's mine." With that threat hanging in the air, Clara realized that they were at a precipice. The meeting had turned into a game of survival, and it was clear that Daniel was willing to resort to any means necessary to protect his interests, even if it meant targeting her father directly. "We're not afraid of you, Daniel," Clara declared, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "We'll uncover the truth, and when we do, there will be no place for you to hide. I will protect my father at all costs." Daniel's face contorted with rage, but he quickly masked it with a cold smile. "I look forward to seeing you try, Clara." The atmosphere crackled with tension as Clara and Lucas watched Daniel and Helena exit the mansion. Clara knew that they had entered a dangerous game, one where the stakes were life and death. As the door closed behind them, she turned to Lucas and Arthur, a mix of determination and fear coursing through her. "We need to be on high alert," Clara said, her voice resolute. "If they're willing to confront us like this, then they're likely planning something even more dangerous." Arthur nodded, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on him. "We'll need to tighten security and keep an eye on both of them. I won't let either of them jeopardize our family." Clara felt a fire igniting within her, fueled by the realization that she would not back down. The investigation had transformed into a battle for her father's life, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. That night, Clara sat in her room, contemplating the confrontation. She could feel the adrenaline still pulsing through her veins, and she knew that they had to stay one step ahead of their enemies. It was a precarious balance, but Clara was determined to navigate it with grace and strength. As she prepared for bed, her thoughts turned to her father's safety and the threat that loomed over their family. Clara vowed to herself that she would uncover the truth, no matter how deep she had to dig. The shadows surrounding them would not win. She would expose the darkness and protect the ones she loved. The next day would bring new challenges, but Clara felt invigorated by the battle ahead. The clock was ticking, and she was ready to dive deeper into the mystery, confronting the dangers that lay ahead with courage and resolve. In the end, the truth would prevail, and she would ensure that her father remained safe from the very threats that sought to destroy them. The Mendoza mansion had become a fortress. Every door was bolted, every window monitored, and the estate grounds patrolled by vigilant security. Clara, Arthur, and Lucas knew that they were racing against time. The enemies lurking in the shadows, Daniel and Helena, had made it clear that they wouldn't back down without a fight. For Clara, the stakes had never been higher. It wasn't just about uncovering secrets anymore. It was about survival. Clara had barely slept since the confrontation with Daniel and Helena. Her mind replayed every moment of that encounter, dissecting their words, their body language, and the subtle exchanges of glances. Each detail seemed significant, but one thing had become painfully clear. There was a larger conspiracy at play, one that went beyond mere greed. She knew she needed to focus, and she couldn't afford any mistakes. As the morning sun filtered through the curtains, Clara sat with Lucas in the library, surrounded by papers and files they had collected. Arthur, though exhausted, joined them, determined to take part in every aspect of the investigation. Lucas was reviewing the latest information they had gathered on Helena's activities. "We have to assume they're already planning their next move," Lucas said, his voice filled with urgency. Arthur nodded in agreement, the lines of worry etched deep into his face. "They think we'll be complacent, that we won't fight back. But they're wrong," he said firmly. "We need to use this time to get ahead of them." Clara looked at Lucas. "What else have you found on Helena?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. She had always sensed there was more to Helena than her calm, professional demeanor suggested. Lucas rifled through a stack of documents before pulling one out. "Here," I dug a little deeper into her connections and found something peculiar. Helena's been meeting frequently with a high-ranking government official, someone named Victor Alves. He's in a position that oversees contracts with the financial sector. Clara's heart skipped a beat. Government involvement? This could be much bigger than we thought, she said, her voice tinged with both fear and determination. What do we know about Victor? Lucas pulled up a profile on his tablet and handed it to Clara. She scanned the information. Victor Alves was a bureaucrat who had worked for years within the government's financial oversight agency. He had a reputation for being ruthless and highly ambitious. But what caught Clara's eye was his connection to various privatization deals that her father had been involved in over the past few years. It looks like Victor may have his own reasons for wanting to hurt our family, Clara said, piecing together the puzzle. He could see Dad as an obstacle to his plans, something that needs to be removed. Arthur sighed deeply, running a hand through his silver hair. That means we're dealing not only with betrayal from within, but also with a political enemy. We need to tread very carefully. Clara could see the fatigue in her father's eyes, but there was also a spark of determination, a refusal to be intimidated. We can't let them break us, Dad, she said, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. We have to be smarter. We need a plan that will force their hand without putting ourselves at risk. Lucas nodded. We have to catch them in the act. If we can get evidence of Helena or Victor orchestrating an attack, we can use it to bring them down, he said. But we'll need to set a trap, something they won't see coming. For the next several hours, the trio brainstormed a plan. It would involve staging a fake business meeting, one that would appear to be a perfect opportunity for Helena and Victor to strike. Clara and Lucas would be there to watch every move, with cameras and recording devices hidden throughout the venue. They would make Helena and Victor believe that Arthur was vulnerable, and when they took the bait, they would finally have the evidence they needed. The plan took shape in the following days. Lucas arranged the logistics, ensuring that the location, a luxurious but secluded estate, was fully equipped for surveillance. Arthur, despite his reluctance to act as bait, agreed to go along with it. Clara knew the risk they were taking was immense, but it was the only way to expose the threat and put an end to the nightmare that had consumed their lives. The evening of the staged meeting arrived. The atmosphere was thick with tension, the weight of what they were about to attempt pressing down on everyone involved. Clara stood beside Lucas, watching as Arthur prepared himself in the mirror. He wore an elegant suit, every detail meticulously arranged, yet his eyes betrayed the concern he felt for his daughter. "Are you sure you want to be here for this?" Arthur asked, turning to face Clara. His voice was soft, filled with both love and worry. "I wouldn't be anywhere else, Dad," Clara replied. "We're in this together. I'm not letting you face them alone." Arthur smiled, pride evident in his eyes. He pulled Clara into a brief but tight embrace. "Whatever happens, just remember that we're doing this to protect our family," he said, "and we will come out of this stronger." Lucas entered the room, his expression serious. "It's time. They're arriving," he said, nodding toward the window where the headlights of approaching cars could be seen cutting through the darkness. Clara felt her heart rate spike, the adrenaline kicking in as they moved toward the living room where the meeting would take place. Lucas gave her a reassuring nod before slipping into the shadows, positioning himself behind one of the concealed surveillance cameras. Arthur took his place at the table, a confident but calm demeanor masking the tension underneath. Helena and Victor entered together, their expressions neutral, but their eyes scanning the room with calculated precision. Helena wore her usual air of sophistication, her movements graceful yet deliberate. Victor, on the other hand, carried himself with the arrogance of someone who believed he was untouchable. "Arthur," Helena greeted, her voice smooth, "thank you for inviting us. I understand there's an important matter you wish to discuss." "Indeed," Arthur replied, his voice level as he gestured for them to sit. "There have been developments that I believe could be beneficial for all parties involved. But before we get to that, I want to clarify a few things." Victor exchanged a glance with Helena, a subtle flicker of suspicion passing between them. Clara watched from the corner of the room, every sense on high alert. She could feel the tension radiating from her father as he engaged them in conversation, steering the topic closer to the issues at hand. "What sort of clarification?" Victor asked, his tone laced with a hint of impatience. "If this is about the recent business hurdles, I assure you that we're all facing challenges." Arthur leaned back, his gaze steady. "It's not just about business. It's about understanding where everyone's loyalties lie. Lately, there have been concerns regarding certain actions taken without the family's best interests at heart." Helena's eyes narrowed, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. "Arthur, surely you're not questioning my loyalty after all these years," she said, her voice dripping with feigned innocence. "That's exactly what I'm questioning," Arthur responded bluntly. "I need to know if those around me are genuinely working for the good of this family, or if they have their own agendas." Victor chuckled, the sound devoid of humor. "Are you accusing us of betrayal, Arthur? That's a bold statement." The room fell silent, the air charged with an unspoken challenge. Clara held her breath, her eyes darting between Helena and Victor, watching for any sign that they might take the bait. And then it happened. A subtle shift in Helena's expression, her eyes narrowing just slightly before she glanced at Victor. It was all Clara needed to see. There was something there, something they weren't saying. Before Victor could respond, Lucas stepped out of the shadows, his voice cutting through the silence. "I think it's time we all laid our cards on the table," he said, his presence startling both Helena and Victor. "What is this?" Victor demanded, his eyes flashing with anger as he stood from his seat. Lucas ignored the question, instead walking over to Arthur's side. "We know what's been going on. We have evidence of your conversations. Your plans to undermine Arthur, to take control of his assets. We've been watching every move you made." Helena's composure began to crack, her expression faltering as she glanced at Victor, whose face had turned a deep shade of red. "This is a trap," Victor spat, his voice shaking with rage. "You're trying to frame us." "No one's framing you," Clara said, stepping forward with her own resolve evident. "We're simply exposing the truth. You've been plotting against my father, and we have everything we need to prove it." Victor lunged toward the table, his fist slamming down as he shouted, "You'll regret this. You think you can take me down without consequences." Lucas moved quickly, signaling to the hidden security team to enter the room. Within moments, several guards appeared, surrounding Helena and Victor, making it clear that their time was up. Helena, her calm, enjoyed the story. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Share your thoughts in the comments and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next thrilling episode. See you in our next video. Take care.